nowadays keep mugs like you out of the pen without being a fence for what you stole? Now you get out of this office and stay out.
Okay, but I'll be back. $50,000 is a lot of money.
Well, what do you want?
Why,
Robert works here, Mr. Hines.
my name's Robert Tasker. Did Mr. Krieger tell you about me?
I knew I'd seen you before. You're that punk kid I sent up to San Quentin. That was for 10 years. What do you mean you're working here?
Well, Mr. Krieger got me out. He gave me a job.
Job of what? Snooping outside my office?
I wasn't.
Don't talk back to me, you dirty little jail rat.
Why, you...
Robert, don't!
Come on, let me go.
Hey, what's the trouble here?
Come on, let me go.
Stop it. Now, calm down. What's the matter?
What's the idea of bringing this kid into the office, Max? Isn't it bad enough to have to work with criminals all day?
Robert's not a criminal. He's here because I want him to be here. Because I believe in him and trust him.
Oh, yeah?
You don't still have anything against Robert, do you?
Well, I just don't like anybody hanging around outside my door when I'm having a private conference, that's all.
Now, look. Robert Tasker is one of the finest, most gifted young people I've ever known. I want him to get along here. And I want him to get along with you, too, Arthur. See?
Well, me, I can get along with anybody. Well, I gotta be in court.
Wait a minute. Now, shake hands, both of you, will you?
Well, anything to keep peace in the family.
That's fine. Everything forgotten. Start off on a clean slate, right?
Sure. Well, I'll see you later in the afternoon, Max.
Robert, come into my office for a minute, will you?
Sure.
My boy, I'm terribly sorry. I don't know how to begin to apologize.
Why should you apologize?
Oh, it was all my fault. I don't know how I could have been stupid enough not to tell him beforehand, for both your sakes.
I know, but I just don't like him, and he doesn't like me.
No, Robert, you're wrong there. It's just that things have been happening lately to upset him. Like this fellow Marvin and his $50,000.
You know about that?
Well, Robert, you know, we have to deal with some peculiar people in this business. There's a poor fellow who's been in prison himself for the last 5 years. He had quite a lot of money when he went in. Oh, he stole it, I guess.
And he thinks Hines hijacked it on him, huh?
If he ever really had it. He says he left it with a pal of his, and later the pal was killed in a gunfight. Gallucci, you remember the case.
Yeah, I remember something about it.
Anyway, just before he died, he told somebody he'd left the money with Hines. That's how the story goes. You know how those things travel on the grapevine. It's all nonsense, of course.
That guy meant business just the same.
It probably explains the whole thing. Hines was a little scared. But don't let it worry you, Robert. You will stay, won't you? Believe me, it's for the best.
Well, I've got to trust somebody, I guess.
Trust me, Robert. I've never given you a bum steer, have I?
No. Okay.
That's the spirit. And any other little troubles, you just bring them to me, see?
Thanks. Well, I guess I better relieve Peggy on the board.
Keep your chin up, kid.
Sure. Sorry I kept you waiting, Peggy.
That's all right.
Hey, Peggy, what's the matter?
Please, don't say anything.
Oh, but Peggy, what is it?
Robert, I'm scared.
Of what, Hines? Don't be silly.
No, it's not him.
Well, what is it?
Robert, I shouldn't. But I've got to tell someone.
Well, sure you have. All right, now take it easy. What is it?
I've never told anyone before. Neither Mr. Hines nor Mr. Krieger know. I'd die if they did. You wouldn't tell anyone, would you?
Well, of course I won't. Come on, spill it.
You saw that man who was in here, who was arguing with Mr. Hines about the $50,000?
Yeah?
Well, it's true. There is $50,000 somewhere.
Yeah? Well, how do you know all this?
I know, and I'm scared. Robert, he's a killer.
That guy? Well, I wouldn't be surprised, but how do you know?
Because he's my own brother.
I had a hunch to lam out of there right then. I knew something was going to happen. But I hated to run out on Peggy when she was in a jam and might need help, and I didn't want to let Mr. Krieger down either. So I stayed. And one day, about 2 weeks later, it came. I hadn't had any more trouble with Hines. He was out of town most of the time anyway. He was still out of town that day. The day that he died.
Krieger and Hines. I'm sorry he's out of town. You might try later this afternoon. Yes, I'll tell Mr. Hines.
Say, Peggy.
Uh-huh.
Do you know when Mr. Krieger will be in?
He didn't say. He's still over in the court on... Harry.
Where is he?
Who?
You know who, Hines.
Oh, Harry, I told you not to come. I begged you not
Sure.
to.
Always a little pal, always a... Hey, wait a minute. What does this guy know?
I told him that you were my brother. But nobody else knows how...
Sure, okay, what do I care? I only care about one thing.
But you promised, Harry. You promised...
Where's Hines?
I don't know. He's out.
Then I'll wait till he comes back.
Harry, you mustn't.
I'm staying. I'll get it out of him.
Harry, your sister says you should leave.
You keep out of this, punk.
I don't like that word, pal.
Robert, listen. Will you watch the board for a few minutes?
Sure, it's lunchtime anyway.
Harry, I've got some things I want to talk over with you privately.
Yeah? What things?
About Hines and... Well, you know. Come on, we'll go downstairs to the grill in the lobby.
You wouldn't be trying to ease me out of here, would you?
No, honest, I've got to talk to you, Harry. Come on.
Okay. And listen, pal.
Yeah?
If Mr. Hines comes in, you tell him I was here. And tell him he better come across or else.
Is that all?
Well, that's enough, ain't it? You'll know what I mean. Plenty.
Sure. Krager, Hines.
Hello, Robert. This is Max Krieger.
Oh, yes, Mr. Krager.
You there all alone? Peggy out to lunch, huh?
Yes, she is.
Well, that can't be helped. I'm in a hurry. Now, I'll tell you what I want you to do.
Yes, sir?
I'm across the street in the courthouse, Judge Andrews' court, the Ellsworth case. Now, there are some notes I've got to have over here right away. They're in my own handwriting, pencil, and clearly marked Ellsworth.
Yes, sir.
Now, you'll find them in Mr. Hines' office. Pages all clipped together. I don't know exactly where in his office. It may be on his desk. It may be on one of the drawers or in the file or under the blotter. But keep looking, see? Keep looking until you find it.
All right, sir.
And then bring it over to me right away.
Yes, sir.
Got it? I'll be waiting for you.
I left the switchboard and went into Mr. Hines' office. I started looking around for the notes. I looked everywhere, the desk drawers, the filing cabinet. I even tried to look in the safe, but it was locked. Then I noticed some yellow papers on top of the bookcase. I reached up and took them down. I was standing there with my back to the private entrance, looking the papers over to be sure that they were the right ones.
What are you doing in here?
Mr. Krager wants some papers, Mr. Hines.
I thought I told you to stay away from my office. What are you snooping around in here for?
Well, Mr. Krager told me to look in here
Yeah?
for him.
Something mighty funny going on around this office.
Oh, there's nothing funny. Mr. Krager
I say
said...
there is. What's the switchboard girl doing sneaking around the lobby with Harry Marvin? Tried to duck me, but I saw him. First, the switchboard girl turns out to have a crazy ex-convict for a boyfriend, and now I find...
That's a lie. He's our brother.
A brother? Oh, so that's it.
Oh, I shouldn't have said that, Mr. Hines. I don't know anything about it, really.
You don't, huh? Well, I do. I get it now. I knew there was something, and all of a sudden I get it.
Mr. Hines, there's nothing to get.
So the girl and her brother go down to the lobby and set themselves an alibi, because they know I'll suspect them. Then they get you to do their dirty work for a nice fat cut, I suppose. That's what you think.
Please, Mr. Hines, don't talk that way.
Well, you didn't find it, did you? And you won't. Now get out of here, you little punk. Before...
I said don't talk that way.
Why, you dirty, thieving little strip...
I told you not to talk that way. He fell and just lay there. For a minute, I didn't know what to do. Then I knew I'd have to tell Mr. Krager. I knew I was all washed up there anyway. I couldn't very well expect a man even like Mr. Krager to choose between his law partner and me. And I couldn't stay in the same office with Mr. Hines after what had happened. Somehow, I wanted to tell Mr. Krager myself before anyone else did. I went out to the switchboard and dialed the courthouse number.
Judge Andrews' court, Johnson speaking.
I want to speak to Mr. Max Krager. This is his office calling.
Well, I don't see him around here right now. The court's in recess.
Oh, I know, but try to locate him, will you? It's important.
Okay, hold the line.
I sat there, waiting for them to find Mr. Krager. All of a sudden, I remembered the papers he wanted. I cut off the call on the switchboard. Had to take the papers over to him anyway, and I thought I might as well go over and give him the papers and tell him what had happened then, and I'll get it over with. I was starting for the front door of the office. Then I heard a sound from Mr. Hines' office behind me. At first, I thought he was just coming to, and I kept going. And something sort of clicked in my mind, and I stopped. The sound hadn't seemed quite right for a man just coming to. I listened, but I didn't hear anything more, and that didn't seem quite natural either. I went back and opened the door to Mr. Hines' office. He was lying there just as I'd left him, and yet there was something different. I went over and looked at him more closely. His face was a terrible gray color. I touched his wrist, feeling for his pulse. Next thing I knew, I was down on my knees, tearing open his collar, but even then I knew it wasn't any use. Mr. Hines was dead. stood there in that room. Might have been hours. It might have been only a couple of minutes. I just stood there, my mind dazed, and yet at the same time racing through 1,000 half-formed plots and schemes of escape, of what I could say, of some way out of it. Then the switchboard began to buzz with an incoming call. It sort of brought me to my senses, and more out of a habit than anything else, I went out to answer it. Krager and Hines.
Robert, you still there?
Mr. Krager,
Where are those notes? Haven't you found them yet?
Yeah, I found them all right.
Well, bring them over here. I need them right away.
Mr. Krager,
Robert, what's the matter with you?
I just killed Mr. Hines.
You're just making it hard for yourself, Tasker.
I've told you what happened.
In a pig's eye you have.
Well, I don't have to talk if I don't want to.
Oh, no?
I'm waiting for Mr. Krager. I told you that.
Krager, what do you think he's going to do for you?
I don't know.
Well, I do. He's going to see that you burn. That's what he's going to do for you.
Maybe.
What do you expect? You kill a man's law partner right in his own office. And you think he's going to help you? Are you crazy?
No, he told me he'd come down.
Sure, of course he'll come down. To give evidence against you. Now, listen, Tasker. To give a full confession, we may be able to get you a break.
Mr. Krager's outside, Captain. He wants to see you.
Sure, send him in.
Okay, Mr. Krager.
Thank you. Hi, boys.
Hello, Mr. Krager.
Hello, Robert.
Hello, Mr. Krager.
They've been treating you all right?
Pretty good.
Fine. I don't like to have people get rough with my clients.
You're what?
You heard me, Captain. While you're at it, you might as well take those handcuffs off him, because from this moment he's out on bond, released in my custody. I've got the papers right here.
Say, are you crazy?
Certainly not. I simply don't believe the boy did it, that's all.
Well, I'll be... All right, Hawkshaw. Who do you think did it?
That, Captain, is your department. My job is simply to defend an innocent man.
Look, Krager, don't try to kid us. It's an open and shut case. Tasker's the only person who had the opportunity, the only one who had a motive.
Mm-hmm.
Well?
Not to speak ill of the dead, Captain, and although Arthur Hines was my law partner, it's unfortunately true that quite a number of people at least thought they had a motive.
Sure, so maybe this ex-con Harry Marvin had a motive. Maybe even the dame on the switchboard had a motive, for all I know. But they couldn't have done it. 50 people saw him together downstairs in the lobby of the building at the time the murder was committed.
Oh, you've talked to him, have you?
Sure, so what? Listen, this kid admits he had a quarrel with Hines. He always hated him anyway. He admits he hit him. So he picks the paperweight off the desk and smashes him over the head.
Wait a minute. You didn't say anything about that, Robert.
No, I didn't even know about it before. I didn't hit him with a paperweight.
Stop it, will you? The back of the man's head is bashed in with that paperweight. This kid's fingerprints are all over it. What's so funny? This is murder, mister.
I'm sorry, but you'll find out if you ever try to bring this boy to trial for killing Arthur Hines with a paperweight.
Listen, Krager, I know you're pretty smart, and I know you go around bragging about you never lost a case.
And that goes for this one. Double.
But you're not going to make a chump out of me. This boy's going to be indicted for murder. He's going to be convicted of murder. And he's going to burn for murder.
Indicted, convicted, burned. 3 promises. And the first one's already happened. The second one, well, even I can see we don't stand much chance. And the third one, well, I just try not to think about it. There is Mr. Krager, up before that jury, acting as though it was an absolute certainty that I'd be cleared, pleading for me as though I were the only guy in the world. Because, well, that's the kind of a man he is.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my firm conviction that when you've heard this boy's story from his own lips, and when through it you have in some measure, as I have in large measure, gained insight into the depth and integrity of his character and spirit, you will also believe him innocent. He is innocent. Now, Robert, I'll ask you to take the stand.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Now, Robert, just for the record, will you tell the court your full name?
Robert Loring Tasker.
Your age?
24.
Your mother and father are dead. You have no living relatives.
No. No one.
Now, before you begin your story, there are 1 or 2 extremely important points that I particularly wish to emphasize to the court. Now, tell me, Robert,